Welcome to the Call to Meat Scotland podcast, where we bring you the latest insights from across the Scottish red meat sector, from the public body that works on its behalf. I'm Claire Taylor, your host for today's episode. Join us as we dive into market trends, brand communications and industry development projects in relation to Scotland's red meat sector, featuring experts, guests, farmers and stakeholders. Together, we'll explore the key facts and perspectives shaping our sector, keeping you informed and engaged with the ever-evolving landscape of the red meat industry. Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the QMS podcast. It's our 100th episode, and we're marking this milestone by shining a spotlight on Scotch Lamb in the lead up to St Andrew's Day. A huge thank you to all our loyal listeners who've been with us from the start, to those who joined along the way, and of course to our wonderful guests who shared their stories and insights with us every month. We'd love to hear your feedback as listeners. We're releasing a short listener survey, and as a thank you, everyone who takes part will receive a Scotch beef, Scotch lamb or a specially selected pork branded beanie or snoot. This month's episode is all about more than celebrating Scotland's patron saint. It's about celebrating Scotland's farmers and the incredible product they produce. The Lamb for St Andrew's Day campaign, which was launched back in 2010, set out to make Scotch Lamb a natural part of St Andrew's Day, a bit like turkey at Christmas or haggis on Burns Night. And at the heart of this effort is the Institute of Auctioneers and Appraisers in Scotland, whose Lamb Bank initiative collects lamb and financial donations from farmers and marts to provide Scotch lamb to schools across the country. In today's episode, we'll hear from voices across the supply chain about how they're backing the campaign, championing the sector and encouraging us all to keep Scotch Lamb on our plates, not just this month, but all year round. Also in this episode, Abby Tong joins us with the latest shopper insights as we head into St Andrew's Day. But first, I caught up with Kate Rowell, who's just back from Brazil after attending the World Meat Congress. Kate, it's great to have you back on the podcast. Last time we spoke, you just returned from Anuga in Germany, and now you're just literally back off a plane from Brazil. You've been at the World Meat Congress. Can you share a little bit about what you've been doing over there?
Yeah, it was amazing, Claire, really, really amazing. So the World Meat Congress is organised by an organisation called the International Meat Secretariat, and they have got members all over the world, and they organise this conference once every 2 years for everybody to get together and discuss issues in the world of meat. So, I mean, literally everybody was there. There were people from Beef and Lamb New Zealand, Meat and Livestock Australia, the US, China, Japan. There were people from Africa. There was, everybody that's anybody in the meat world was there. So the first really big thing is just the sort of networking that you get, the people that you meet and the conversations that you have, and you're able to find out what's going on in different places around the world. So that's the best bit of the whole thing, and obviously some lovely Brazilian meat over there that we had at every single meal. But the main point of the conference is obviously to talk about issues. So there was one or two really sort of big themes that came out of it. The first one is, we've been talking about it forever, but sustainability, it's not going anywhere, and every single country is absolutely focused on sustainability and how they can display their credentials. So that's something that we really, we are on top of, but we need to keep on top of that because it's not going anywhere. The overriding theme is that there isn't enough meat in the world. That is where we are at the moment, particularly beef and sheep meat. There's a tight supply of sheep, particularly globally, because in Australia and New Zealand there's been a bit of a production dip in the past couple of years, so that's tight, and the US are importing more sheep meat than they ever have in the past, and beef in particular. There just isn't enough beef to go around in the whole world. Everybody's after it, and there's a lot of trade going on because that's what's important to an awful lot of countries. They trade. Here in the UK, we're not necessarily big traders in beef. When you go to somewhere like Brazil, and we were in a state called Mato Grosso, which is, I think, the biggest beef producing state in Brazil, they have 3 million people in Mato Grosso and 35 million head of cattle. And if you compare that to Scotland, we have 5 million people and round about 400,000 head of cattle. You know, it's just so unbelievably different. So it's great. You know, we're minnows in this world of beef, but we really do punch above our weight. And it was great that we were there and able to represent Scotland on the global stage.
Sounds like an absolutely amazing visit, and actually there's quite a lot in there that you echoed when we spoke about Anuga, especially when you're saying about there just isn't enough meat around the world. So you're obviously hearing that again. It's such a big congress completely dedicated to meat, but that sustainability message, I think a lot of people listening, it's great to hear that, because I think we often think it's just us that are having to meet all these different goals and objectives, but really to hear that is front and centre of all these major countries around the world. It's really good to hear, Kate, as well. Bringing it back home, now we're back in Scotland. I know you've had an absolutely mad November, flying around doing so many things, but of course November for us, we're leading up to St Andrew's Day, Lamb for St Andrew's Day, and just be great to hear how this event has really grown over the years as you've seen that, and as your role as chair, Kate, how it's really developed and the importance of it.
Yeah, when I first started, it wasn't something really that was on the radar, but particularly with respect to the Institute of Auctioneers, you know, they've really been the ones that pushed it, and we have tried to partner and support with them as much as possible, but it is their, you know, it's their thing that they've pushed, and they've done such a great job of it. So we try to support it by helping with the marketing, help get the message out. And in the past few years, we've also had a day at the Scottish Parliament alongside the auctioneers, where we talk to the MSPs about Scotch Lamb and what the sector, you know, needs, wants, and how much it produces and contributes to Scotland's economy. So that's a really good day. I think we've got another day lined up there this year to do that. And we just support as much as we can in getting that message out there, so that everybody gets to think it's just a normal thing to have lamb for St Andrew's Day, which it absolutely should be, because it's such a good meat.
And just, of course, we're talking about Lamb St Andrew's Day, and obviously specifically within this month, there's loads of events happening around the calendar, and we're going to hear about some of those at the end of the podcast. So we've got a great kind of group discussion that's going to be really focusing on all the different things that are happening. But another part of the discussion is going to be, how do we make this year round? How do we make sure that drive for lamb is something that we're putting on our plates year round? Has that been something that's been kind of front of your mind as well, Kate? You've had any ideas around that?
Yeah, so I mean, we do work all year round to try and support the sector and market as much as we can, and it is something that in Scotland we've not been used to eating nearly as much as people in other parts of the UK. You know, I think in Wales they eat 3 times the amount of lamb that we do, so it's something that's always been on our radar. And I suppose by trying to emphasise the occasional lamb for St Andrew's Day, you might well get people eating it who don't normally eat it, and they might eat it just once because they're at a special dinner, or because it's it's a special day, and hopefully they would enjoy it so much that then that would mean that they would go back and buy it again and again. Yeah. And particularly the auctioneers initiative going into schools, if you can get children to eat it and try it in schools when they might not ever have it at home, and they like it, and then they go home and say to their parents, can we have that again, then that's absolutely where we want to be, getting the next generation started and enjoying lamb as much as we all do.
And just to finish with, Kate, what are your plans for St Andrew's Day? How are you going to be marking the occasion?
So we will be having Scotch Lamb on St Andrew's Day. It will be our own Scotch Lamb out of the freezer, and my favourite lamb dish is always a leg of lamb. I am not a good cook, but my husband is, and he makes a fantastic roast leg of lamb with all the trimmings. So I'll hopefully be sitting back and watching him do that.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I hope Ed cooks up a lovely meal, Kate. Enjoy that, and great to see you again. Hopefully you spend a little bit more time on the ground. You've had a very busy couple of months. Well, you're busy all the time I speak to you, Kate, but hopefully the lead up to Christmas things quieten down. But thanks so much for coming back on and joining us again.
Thanks a lot, Claire.
Thanks. Now, let's hear from Abby Tong for an update on what's influencing buying habits and how consumer behaviour is shifting as we approach St Andrew's Day. Abby, welcome back to the podcast. This month we're talking all about lamb for St Andrew's Day, and we'd love to kick off if you can give us a bit of an update on how lamb is performing in Scotland.
Yes, actually. So it's actually quite encouraging picture for Scotland for lamb this year. So looking at the latest data from World Panel by Numerator for the latest 52 weeks, we actually see lamb in Scotland has outperformed the GB. Across GB, we have seen total primary red meat volumes has been fell by around 3.8% compared to last year. And the lamb actually took the biggest hit across all these three proteins and down by 14.5%. So that's a mass loss. But in Scotland, we have a nuanced picture actually. We have seen red meat sales dropped by a smaller 3.3%, and lamb is relatively the best performer actually in Scotland, and the volume declined by only 1.9%. So I think while the GB market has softened somewhat, and the Scottish shoppers are still choosing lamb. So what's really interesting here is that average amount shoppers bought lamb per trip has actually increased according to the data. So I think this in general is a great sign of resilience in the Scottish market.
Oh, what amazing hearing these figures, and how fascinating that comparison with what's happening with GB. And Abby, of course, we're talking about St Andrew's Day. If we're able to look back to last St Andrew's Day in 2024, what did we see in terms of households buying lamb, and how does that compare to what's happening now in 2025?
Yes, I think looking back at last St Andrew's Day, the data actually showed some highlights for lamb. So in the 4 weeks to 1st December 2024, we actually see around 9.2% of Scottish households bought primary lamb. What really stood out most is that actually shoppers were picking up more lamb per trip. We're talking about 13% volume increase compared to previous year, and we're talking about more spending per trip, and that is meaning more than £1 more spending per trip. And compared to this year, I think we have already seen some similar positive signs. And this year we have seen more shoppers actually were joined into the lamb category, and we have seen more volumes per trip. So I think all these early momentums really suggest that we are probably going to see another strong performance of this St Andrew's Day.
Amazing. And Abby, when I've had you on the podcast over the summer, we did talk a little bit about more people choosing to dine in more often. How has that shift towards premium meals at home influenced lamb consumption?
Yes. Overall, I think this year's dine in over dine out, this trend has a really impact on either it is out in the retail channels in general. I think people are eating out less often because they have a tight budget, but shoppers still want that restaurant quality experience at home. So instead of trading down, and shoppers has been choosing this high quality ingredients, and they are recreating these special meals, special occasions in all kitchens at home. So I think lamb fits that perfectly, because we all know lamb, we often see it as a premium protein. And whether it's a slow cooked shoulder from the Sunday roast, or it's lamb chops, for example, for date night dinner, and it feels indulgent and accessible. And often, and also we have seen the retailers has already tapped into this market as well. We have seen them offering these premium cards and the dine-in meal deals, often featuring lamb, like Sunday roast, whatever. So help it hold its place as a premium protein.
And I know with QMS, they do a lot of work around some of the recipes, showing the diversity and how we can cook lamb. You've mentioned the roast just there, and that's still a real staple, a real traditional. But with those younger consumers, what are you seeing with them in terms of, are they choosing lamb as a natural source of protein? What are the sort of figures showing on that?
Yeah, Yeah, as actually, and we recently had a piece of research with Bird Panel, and actually we just I found it very interesting to see for under 35s, and we mean younger consumers. And the results show that younger consumers are very tuned into nutrition and wellness, and quite often they are like chasing high protein and this target, and often they see red meat as a natural source of high quality protein, and the lamb actually is of course is part of a red meat, and the lamb could deliver around 25 to 28 grams per 100 grams, and often this lamb along with key nutrients like iron and zinc. So I think for targeting the younger consumers, I think education is the key piece here. So we just need to tell the young consumers that lamb isn't just for Sunday roast, and people need more inspirations. I think it could be part of like a quick and healthy everyday meals. That thinking lamb like stir fry, or it's quite popular like tacos or even like wraps or whatever, that any dishes could fit into modern lifestyles. I think this kind of recipes would attract more younger consumers into the category. And I think the other thing is about a channel. Social media is quite important to like deliver a message to younger consumers. So we just promote like simple and tasty recipe ideas like can help the younger people see lamb as a relevant like protein for their daily life. I think that's something we need to do here.
It's great hearing about that kind of interest in the health benefits and how that's translating to the younger generation. But of course, we always do talk about price, don't we, Abby, when it comes to how that's influencing shopper behaviours. I mean, how is cost influencing shopper decisions around lamb, and what can help them see its value?
Yes, of course. And price is definitely top of mind for shoppers this year. And even though we have seen food inflation level has softened in September, but still it's a 4.5%. It's still high. And around 1 in 5 households are finding it difficult to make ends meet. So lamb, we all know, is a more premium protein, and its price is relatively higher compared to beef and pork. So that said, it's very important to focus on value rather than just a focus on price itself. So lamb, we all know, could deliver fantastic quality, and it's nutrient dense, and it's incredibly could be versatile as well. And we can encourage our consumers to use like smaller cuts, or like mince these relatively cheaper cuts. And all these options can make it easier for people to enjoy lamb at home. I think that just taking Scotch Lamb as example, and once I think shoppers understand the quality and the provenance behind the Scotch Lamb, so they could get with the Scotch Lamb, it's clear that they're getting real value for their money. So this the key piece is the value rather than just the price.
And Abby, just to finish on, we're heading into St Andrews. What is your message to shoppers about why they should celebrate with Scotch Lamb, and or maybe how are you going to be celebrating with Scotch Lamb this St Andrews Day?
Yes, definitely. I think that now is really the perfect time to enjoy this Scotch Lamb, because we are currently right in the beginning of a new season lamb. And the new season lamb, that means the meat is beautifully tender, and at its very best, it's really good. And also, personally, I just love lamb myself, especially during the winter time or those colder times. And I just love slow cooked lamb. And there's nothing better like rich lamb stew with some full of flavor and spices with a splash of white wine. And that's really comfort food at its best to share with your families. I think it's also my message is this St Andrews Day. It gave us a really good chance to celebrate Scotland does its best, like the local high quality food that brings people together. So after such a strong year for lamb, I think it's a perfect time for us to support our farmers and the wider supply chain that works so hard behind the scenes and provide such a good quality lamb to us, to consumers. So whether it's a roast or like lamb stew or this curry, whatever, so like modern like cuisines like tacos or kebabs, this is the best season to enjoy lamb.
Amazing, Abby. What a lovely way to finish. And it's always so fascinating hearing your insights. And it's great to hear things have been looking so positive in the lamb side of things. Thanks so much for coming back on the podcast.
Thank you.
So up next, we are continuing to shine a spotlight on Scotch Lamb for St Andrew's Day. And I'm delighted to welcome 3 guests who play an important role in supporting the campaign and the wider lamb industry. Tracy Martin from Quality Meat Scotland, Robbie Hamilton from United Auctions, and farmer and Scotch Ambassador Anna McKinnon. Welcome everyone to the podcast. Can we begin by you introducing yourself to our listeners? I'll come to you first, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks very much, Claire. So my name is Tracy Martin and I am the Reputation Manager with Quality Meat Scotland. So in terms of the Lamb for St Andrew's Day campaign, my role is sort of coordinating a lot of the activity that we run alongside all of my fab colleagues at QMS, but I oversee all of the education initiatives, so I can talk a little bit more about that.
Amazing. It's great to have you on the podcast, Tracy. And yourself, Robbie?
Yeah, hi, I'm Robbie Hamilton. I'm a sheep auctioneer at United Auctions in Stirling. I quite often sell in Dalmally as well on the West Coast. I mostly sell store lambs in Stirling on a Monday, but I've seen me selling yows on a Thursday at Stirling as well. I'm at every sheep sale in Stirling, so I see a lot of sheep go by me in a week. And I'm quite involved in the Lamb and St Andrew's Day at UA as well, trying to get farmers to donate as much as possible.
Wonderful. Look forward to hearing more about that, Robbie. And Anna, yourself?
My name is Anna McKinnon. I'm a shepherdess in Perthshire. I look after just over 700 ewes on a low ground estate, and I also am a QMS Scotch Ambassador. So I joined on to the ambassador scheme a little over a year ago, and through that go and do visit them to schools and colleges, and basically just promote the benefits of Scots meat, beef, lamb, and pork. But obviously with my background, lamb is generally the one that I can take. I also have a Instagram page called the Shepherdess, which I use to promote basically where people's food comes from and try and bridge that gap between the consumer and us on the farm.
Amazing. It's great to have the 3 of you because in terms of covering the supply chain, we've got lots of different things that we're covering between everybody. And Tracy, I'm going to come to you first. St Andrew's Day has become a real focal point in the calendar for promoting Scotch Lamb. Why is it such an important moment, and what's the campaign really focusing on this year?
So as always, it is busy. We've got lots of activity going on, but I think obviously it's just trying to raise the profile of Scotch Lamb at a time of year where it is very much in season. So as much as we want people to be eating Scotch Lamb all year round, it's a fab opportunity to showcase it. And I think the sort of thinking behind it is that we have traditional meals that we have at other times of year. So at Christmas time we generally have turkey. I think now maybe alongside something else, which is good. But so it's sort of trying to promote Scotch Lamb as the star of the show for St Andrew's Day. So that was the main thinking behind the initiative. But as I said, it is very much a team effort at QMS. We work closely with the Institute of Auctioneers and Appraisers, and we run the campaign sort of together. So we have IAS have been organising things like community lunches at the marts where lamb will be served. We have our public affairs manager has managed to organise a little lunch at Scottish Parliament to showcase it there, and that area, to those stakeholders. We've got loads of school events happening across the country in November where lamb will be cooked and served to children. Quite often that's their first taste of lamb, so that's really exciting to see that happening as well. And then our marketing team are really busy with the consumer activity as well. So it really is a team effort where we try and get that message out across lots of different areas.
Oh, it's some incredible events happening across the country. And I'm sure, Anna mentioned when she started there as well, some of the work she's doing going into schools. So it'll be great to hear a little bit as we go on about some of those specific events and conversations that are happening. Tracy obviously mentioned the marts there. Robbie, you've got an important role in all of this. What is your vantage point at the moment? How is lamb trade shaping up this autumn, and what's the feeling amongst farmers right now?
So lamb trade's been very strong for the time of year. I think we're sitting around 20 pence a kilo in front of this week last year. So that's a good start. Moving forward, hopefully once we get into the turn of the year, it keeps going the same way. We usually see a rise at this time of year generally. So I think farmers are sitting with their fingers crossed in the next few weeks, hoping the rise comes. But it's looking okay. I think we're definitely seeing benefits of doing the Lamb for St Andrew's Day. I know getting it into schools and getting young people started on it, they wouldn't even think about eating lamb before. So getting people started eating that meat we produce so much of it. It's good to really get people into eating lamb. It's just we see so much of it going through United Auctions. I think we could see about 5,000 lambs most weeks. So it's a lot of lamb to sell. So it's good to get people eating it and getting into the meat. So but the trade's looking well at the minute.
Great. And Anna, of course, you're out producing Scotch Lamb and you're sharing your story online and in person as you're part of this campaign as an ambassador. What drew you to get involved with this?
So obviously I grew up on a hill sheep farm, so it's been part of my life since the beginning. And my dad managed a hill sheep flock and my mum was a chef, so the two just sort of coincided very well for my upbringing. But it wasn't really until I took on my first full-time job, which is where I am at the minute, which was just early 2020, that it was almost like seeing the full circle. So I've always appreciated where my food's come from, and I've always had that, I wouldn't have bought anything other than Scottish, or I always really tried to eat seasonally as well. But it wasn't until I think I was out there doing the work day in and day out that I actually, it was almost like a penny drop that I realised that this was something that actually really quite special to be involved in. And I really wanted to make sure that everyone could have some kind of opportunity to see where their food's coming from. So that was, I started off, where I live is really quite rural, but the community is very strong. So I did start off doing a bit of volunteering for the Tayside Brewing Group, which focuses more on the kind of game side of things, and also that kind of promoting rural community and how important it is to teach that. So that was my first kind of volunteering work, and then I moved into a bit of work with vets, which was also classroom speaking. So I was going to, it was mostly primary schools with them, so going and then kind of, it was quite nice when it was littler ones. It was just short, kind of, you would always get a gauge of them when you went in how much they already knew. And I was actually really surprised to see just how engaged they were. And I think that's, if we can get kids young, to kind of be involved and see all these things, because I think there's a huge connect even just in older and people sort of our age. So if we're getting them young enough, and then they can go home and hopefully educate their parents as well. So from that it just kind of spiraled on a bit, and then the opportunity came up within the BMS to join on their Scotch Ambassador. So I've done that, and it's been great. I've met so many people, and ended up in a lot of situations that otherwise I might not have been able to do. So.
And Tracy, this campaign is all about visibility, and obviously hearing what Anna's talking about just now, making sure consumers see and hear from real farmers. That's really important, isn't it? And working with ambassadors like Anna to get these messages beyond those circles within farming and get them out there further? How important is that being behind your decisions behind the campaign?
Yeah, definitely. I think across the whole of the campaign, that has very much been our sort of key focus, is that it is from that sort of boots on the ground perspective. So Anna's obviously spoken about her role as a Scotch ambassador. She's one of almost 40 Scotch ambassadors that we have at QMS now, which is absolutely amazing. A large percentage of those do come from a farming background. We do have some that come from more of a sort of chefing and hospitality background, just because the cookery demonstrations that we deliver in schools or out at other events are key to what they do. So yeah, but they do, a lot of them do come from a farming background, which is absolutely amazing, you know, for young people to actually hear the story of Scotch Lamb from somebody like Anna, who does that, rears that produce day in, day out at home, is absolutely amazing. And then we also try and make the cookery a key part of our school visits as well, just to really link up that whole circle, you know, so they hear about the high standards, the quality assurance that we have, but then we also try and cook with lamb so that they can actually taste that produce at the end. And I think lamb is probably, I think from my perspective, going into schools, that's the one that the kids maybe don't have at home as often or are not as familiar with. So we're really excited. Across the month of November, we've sort of tried to promote the Lamb for St Andrew's Day initiative and bent the arm of teachers and the other providers that we're working with and said, look, can we make lamb the focus of these visits? We work with a recipe creator called Bethany Ferguson. So Bethany, for the last couple of years, has created our recipes that we deliver in schools, and we've tried to showcase this versatility of all three of our proteins, but very much the lamb. One of the things that we quite often hear in classrooms with lamb is that the kids, you know, it's quite funny when you start cooking it, they're always like, oh, it smells funny, it really smells funny. So we've tried to be a bit creative in some of our recipes and added lots of other flavours in there, not to sort of dumb down the taste at all, but just so that the children can see that we're not just talking about a roast. It could be a pasta or a curry, or one of our most popular recipes with the lamb is the Scotch Lamb tacos, which adds a bit of a sort of trendy touch, and the pupils absolutely love that one. So yeah, I think, like you said, having people like Anna who can showcase that whole farm to fork journey of Scotch Lamb is absolutely amazing. And I know that's something that comes through in a lot of our other consumer activity. The When You Know campaign that we run at the moment very much focuses on that, you know, profiling the farmers, the wonderful work of farmers that is out there, and really bringing it back, stripping it back to that level, so that people can appreciate the hard work that goes into the production, but also the fact that it is a premium product.
And hearing just what Tracy's saying there around maybe children's relationship with lamb, they're maybe not having it as much at home. Is that something, maybe, are you picking up on that at all with some of your engagement online? And what feedback are you getting from some of your viewers and listeners, and hearing about you talking about lamb and the benefits and what it does? What kind of feedback are you getting?
It's definitely like what Tracy was saying. I notice a huge difference in schools and in colleges when it comes to lamb. It's something that you really have to showcase more than the others. It's not something that just a lot of people will go to without, you know, encouragement or without that kind of extra something. And I think, yeah, the whole sort of lamb, when I was younger, certainly a lot of people, it was, you had lamb roast or you had a stew, and it was just something that kind of sat on the top of the cooker and it was there all day, and that's together with that smell that you can sometimes get. So it's almost like it was a bit of a non-starter for a while, just because people had that negative connotation probably sort of like the generation above us, just not really doing, not everyone obviously, but not having that variation of what you can cook with it. And I think just obviously the way that lamb is, it can sometimes be a bit tough if it's not cooked properly. So again, you get that sort of low and slow cooking. It might not be the most optimum dish. So it's just about the way that it's marketed, which I think certainly in the last, I'd say, 5 years, I've noticed a huge difference in the way that is. And QMS and Bethany do a fantastic job of finding a range of different things, because there's no reason why you can't have lamb as a fajita or you can't have it. But it's just that, if you say, we're having fajitas for tea, everyone instantly thinks of chicken. So it's just about trying to put it out there and get it in front of people. And social media, I think, is such a fantastic way of doing that. Even just from when I'm posting, I'll do recipes, or I'll just do maybe like a story of something that I've made for tea, and it could be something with lamb that most people would never ever think to do, but because I obviously have access to it and I'm more aware of what you can and can't do, if one or two people are just seeing that from my stories or from my recipes and things, I think that one or two people might tell someone else once they've tried it. So I think it's just about marketing it, and yeah, definitely. And whenever I have cooked it in school, or if I've cooked it for friends, people are always, it's like they're pleasantly surprised by how versatile it can be.
Oh, Robbie, listening to Anna and Tracy and the work that they've been doing with it's the marketing, the really supporting the benefits, the versatility and diversity of lamb online, that must translate into what you're doing. Does it have an impact on confidence? Does it really translate into demand for you at your end?
Yeah, you'd like to think so. I think we're dealing with so many lambs. The sheer volume we're seeing through a weekly basis, it's hard just to pinpoint what's helping. But I think every effort's appreciated, and this in particular on our doorstep, helping local schools as well. It's a massive thing, and it's like if we can get more people going into the local butcher's shop, and then the local butcher comes to us to buy lambs, that's an immediate impact.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's all appreciated. So as I know, like if you ask Anna, like farmers are always needing a wee bit more because other costs are just always getting a wee bit more, and they're hard people to keep happy. So I think as much as we can do to get the prices up and to keep things going, it's all appreciated, because it's a hard task being a farmer, and fuel costs are up. Just any material at all to buy is just dearer, so we really need to get as much as possible for our lamb, and I think at the minute we're doing well to maybe achieve that, but it's the future as well. If we can keep the foot in the gas and keep the thing moving, it'd be very good. So
Robbie, you were saying at the start you're up 20 pence per kilo at the moment, so it's positive just now. Do you think some of that is related to campaigns and demand around St Andrew's Day, or is it much wider than that? Or do you think there's any sort of link between the two?
Yeah, there possibly could be. I think we've done the St Andrew's Day thing for 4 or 5 years now. So we're potentially seeing the effects of that. People were originally doing it in school 4 or 5 years ago, going into the supermarket or the local butcher shop and buying more lambs. So I think we definitely probably will see a positive effect on the trade because of that. We've not had a downward spiral for lamb prices in a while. It's been pretty positive the last few years. So no, it's definitely going the right way, and I think the lamb for St Andrew's Day is definitely having a good effect. We can just always do as much as we can just to help it, but from a market perspective, it's doing the right thing. So it is.
And obviously, Tracy was saying about the relationship with the Institute of Auctioneers and in terms of getting more lamb into schools. Do you see more conversations and more backing behind that? Is there more people championing that in the last couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. We're starting to see more farmers wanting to donate. Yeah, so farmers always want a copy of their friends, and you get the first farmer to donate. All of a sudden, he has 5 friends that also want to donate, and that's a great thing. I think the farmers really appreciate having the chance to donate themselves and having been able to help themselves. Sometimes they can't affect it, but by donating a lamb, I think they are feeling like they are giving a good help towards the scheme. And yeah, it just gives everyone a chance to promote lamb, doesn't it? From the farmer to the auctioneer to the people that are selling it. It gives everyone a good chance to help a good cause. So it does. So no, I think
that's a good.
It's definitely. It's perceived very well from everyone throughout the market. I think I've met anyone yet that thinks it's a bad idea.
It's a really nice way of putting it, actually. Everyone gets an opportunity, because not everyone is going to be like Anna on social media and having a great following and engagement levels. Like, everybody can have a different part they can play in supporting the campaign, supporting the wider industry. It's a nice way of putting that. Everyone's sort of playing their role. Back to you, Tracy. When you're looking at the bigger picture around this, with retail, food service and export markets, where are you seeing the biggest opportunities for lamb in Scotland right now?
I think that may be a question that could possibly be better answered by some of my colleagues at QMS. But yeah, I think in terms of our Lamb for St Andrews campaign, because it is a campaign that the whole of the team at QMS get involved in, hopefully, we would want to try and reach lots of different markets. So in terms of the consumer, as Anna mentioned before, one of the key things is that we want to try and engage with young people, so that hopefully they will be a bit more aware of that whole farm to fork journey that Scotch Lamb makes. The marketing team obviously are targeting our consumers in Scotland and the wider UK, and the different activity that they run through the Lamb for St Andrews Day campaign hopefully helps in that respect as well. In terms of export, obviously we attend events worldwide across the year. The Lamb for St Andrews Day campaign is probably more of a UK-wide campaign, but I think just raising that profile, we do have my colleague Gordon Newlands. He works with hospitality and caterers to try and promote Scotch Lamb within the month of November to them. We have restaurant and retailer promotions running right through the campaign. So hopefully all the different activations that we run really help to spread that positive message right across the board.
And to all of you, really, we're really focusing in this episode. It's about Lamb for St Andrews Day, and we're really getting behind that, really focusing in November. But really, to listeners and to everyone, the big thing is about how do we make sure that drive and that demand for lamb is year-round. I'd love to hear just from all of you, really, how do we make this a year-round campaign? I know Tracy was mentioning earlier, turkeys at Christmas, Lamb for St Andrews Day. We have these sort of pinpoints in the calendar where we sort of traditionally associate these cuts and different types. But really, for lamb in Scotland, we want to be looking at it as a year-round thing. What are kind of ideas from all of you? I might come to you, Anna, first on that. What do you think is the main thing we can get to get people doing at it? And I know you've mentioned getting more young people. That's probably a good start too. But what would be your kind of key focus for that?
I would say having a promotional campaign such as Lamb for St Andrews is probably the best way to do it, because if you get people, if you're focusing on lamb for the month of November and you're really pushing it, and it's something that's very much on the focal point of people's minds, they're going to be more likely inclined to cook it the rest of the year round. So if they're getting a taste of it in November, they're seeing it more, it's almost like a subconscious thing that people will revert back to it. So whether they might, it's little small steps that you might not even notice a huge change as a consumer yourself, where you might actually reach for lamb mince and think something else for a change, or you might just swap something out. It's just little things like that I don't think it needs to be, I don't think we need to be absolutely, pushing it all year round. But I think it's just the way of likes of what's happening at the minute, keeping it relevant and keeping it, building that story and really connecting with the consumers. Because like we were saying, consumers want to see where it's coming from. They want to put a name to it. They want that story. So I think that's that's the key. I think is just really building on that, and like hearing from different people within the industry. So just making sure there's a range of different stories and there's lots of, advice and information out there. Is probably the best chance at that, I would say.
I mean, that's a great way to put it, is that you have that focus for that month and that sticks in their mind throughout the year and influencing those kind of choices throughout. Robbie, for you, what are you hearing around the ring? I mean, what are farmers saying? What are auctioneers saying? Is there any ideas that you come across that you kind of pique your interest?
I think I was speaking to a farmer the other day, and he had a look at the recipes that he had made for the lamb for St Andrew's Day, and I think he touched on the tacos, the lamb tacos. I think he'd seen, and I think there was one year they done a lamb pizza, and he thought that was a great idea. That foods we eat so much. I know it's fast food, but there is a lot of pizzas eaten through, especially younger people, and burgers and things. And I think if we can push to lamb burgers, lamb pizza, lamb tacos, I think that's an amazing way to get people to start eating lamb more often, and a route that not a lot of people have thought about before for using lamb. So I think that's a great way to get people to eat lamb weekly or daily, just in different recipes, eating it in different ways. It's not just a roast, you can use it in different ways. I think that's an amazing way to try and use a bit more lamb, and I really enjoy a lamb burger. We quite often have them at home, and I think I don't think a lot of people know there is such a thing, and it's actually really, really tasty, and it's a good way of pushing lamb into everyone's weekly diet.
Yeah, I mean, because so traditionally it was that Sunday roast, wasn't it? And that maybe if you're trying to hit those different generations and pique the interest, that idea of the lamb pizzas, the lamb burgers is something I've definitely been eating a lot more of in the last few years as well. What do you think, Tracy, just hearing what Anna and Robbie are saying, or any sort of extra ideas from you on that?
Yeah, I think they've both hit the nail on the head in terms of what we're trying to do. Our recipe for this year, a brand new one that will come out for the Lamb for St Andrew's Day campaign, is Scotch Lamb with sun-dried tomato and basil orzo. So again, another little twist.
Yummy.
And just something that you maybe wouldn't think of including lamb in a dish like that, but it's hopefully going to be really popular, just as popular as some of the previous ones. But I think, as Anna said, it's using this month to try and raise the profile of lamb and then build on that throughout the rest of the year. So in terms of what we're doing with our community engagement, so we've spoken a lot about schools, but we also work with young people in a variety of settings. We work really closely with the Royal Highland Education Trust, who do a brilliant job in promoting food and farming to young people. So we have a variety of events with them throughout the year, so it'll just be hopefully keeping that momentum up and trying to showcase lamb at some of these events as well. And we also now are doing quite a lot in the sports field, working with young people within sports settings. So we have a partnership just now with Edinburgh Rugby and Glasgow Warriors, and we're looking to use some of the events that we do with them to again profile Scotch Lamb. So we do our Eat to Compete events with the rugby teams at the minute, and the focus of them is very much on the nutrition of red meat. So obviously lamb's a great source of protein for these young athletes, as well as including B vitamins, zinc and potassium and phosphorus and all these things that help us stay healthy, have good immune systems, help our energy levels. So it's really trying to promote it, like you said, both Robbie and Anna covered that it's not just a roast dinner, it's so much more than that. And I think if we can get that across to these young people, that hopefully will help for they're our consumers of the future. So we want them to love lamb and include it as part of their diet.
And not just building on, not just having more young people as consumers, but also even just building on it and thinking about, Anna, some of the work, and I guess your passion around getting more young people interested in farming. And maybe that's something I'll come to you, Robbie, about your line of work too. I mean, what's going to inspire more young people to get into farming? Obviously, we've talked, this episode has been about getting people behind Scotch Lamb, but from the farming perspective, Anna, what's going to really get the next generation involved in farming?
I had a conversation actually not too recently about this, and just having those opportunities there, because and this is kind of the route it was, everyone is so busy and everyone has to ram so much into the day that the idea of taking on a trainee or taking a young person in for a couple of days a week, it's almost like that in itself is a bit of a job. So it's making sure that there are opportunities still for young people within the industry, which if you're not directly involved, whether you're brought up or whether your parents are farming, I think it can be a bit tricky, especially when it comes to also, we've got a lot of rules around health and safety, which is completely necessary. But it's just making sure whether if you feel that you have an interest in farming from a young age, or you want that opportunity, it's about making sure that is that young people have the opportunity to go out and maybe have a day or two here, or and I think that's also another huge benefit of going into schools and engaging with young people when it comes from a farmer going into the classroom. It's about building connections and making sure that I might not directly be able to help someone, but I might know someone who will. So it's just about that network of encouragement and making sure that it's really sad when you hear kids that are dying to go out on a farm, but they just haven't got the opportunity or haven't got the means for it. So I think it's just really keeping an eye on the young generation coming through. And it's the same across a lot of it. It's not just like exclusively farming, it's just that making sure that these is farming is quite a very specific skill set. So it's making sure that everyone is getting the opportunity.
And just Anna, it's interesting when you talk about what can we do in farming to be helping and providing those opportunities. I know we've had conversations in the past. I remember years ago talking about we need more mentors and people actually providing those opportunities. It's a really nice way of putting it, is what more can we do? Because the enthusiasm is often there, the skills are often there. It's actually just giving that step onto the ladder, isn't it, to start? Robbie, what about yourself? What are you finding about people coming through into your trade? Is there a lot of interest, and what's really been driving or creating opportunities at your end?
Yeah, I think there is definitely plenty of young people keen to get on to be a farmer, but I think the opportunities sometimes are lacking. Even just getting the chance of a bit of ground or the money it costs to buy a lot of breeding ewes would scare off a lot of young people. So I think there is a lot of young people there, but I think if we can do our best to keep the lamb trade good, the sheep trade good, as long as somebody who starts and has to spend a bit of money to get started, as long as he sees a few returns, I think that's the best way to get people started. And there is a lot of government grants and things to try and get young people into it and get them going. So there's definitely plenty of young people keen, as long as it is financially viable for them. I don't see why we won't see a lot of young farmers coming through, but it's a very hard thing to get started with. But as long as we can do our best to keep the lamb trade and the cattle trade good and keep things steady for them, I don't see why they can't come through, and it maybe should be achievable eventually. So it's a long road, I would say.
It's probably something there as well. When the trade is good, often we don't talk too much about it because we're too nervous about it being good. We're almost superstitious, but we probably need to be more positive. Talk up when things are really good, because you're absolutely right. That is when people are going to be like, well, that's a sector I want to be part on. It's going to be really successful. So there's probably something very much in there. But just aware of time, you've all given up so much time this morning to share with the podcast. Just going back into lamb for St. Andrew's Day round the corner, I want to know how each of you are going to be celebrating. Tracy, I'll come to you first. Like, what are you doing? Whether it's a lamb dish you're cooking, you're going to an event or something, what's going to be your go-to on lamb for St. Andrew's Day?
I think probably one of the recipes that we use with schools. I think it's probably easy to think that if it's a school recipe, it's probably really simple and might not be something that exciting in terms of like a celebration. But we definitely try and make sure that they're really tasty. So as I mentioned before, the Scotch Lamb tacos are definitely a winner in our house. I have 2 little boys that are 7 and 10, and they absolutely love them. So I think possibly a Scotch Lamb taco, but being a bit of a traditionalist, I'm sure there might also be a lamb roast in there somewhere, because on a dreary autumnal day, you definitely can't beat it. But yeah, I think after the busyness of our Lamb for St Andrew's Day campaign, it'll be nice to just chill at home and have a nice dinner, enjoying some of that lamb.
It sounds amazing. And what about you, Anna? How are you going to mark the occasion?
Yeah. I think it's a Sunday, isn't it? The St Andrew's Day. So yeah, I'm probably going to get some friends over and do a nice simple lamb recipe, but try and do something a bit modern. And I'm also going to try my very best to do one lamb recipe a week from now until then, and I'll do some recipe posting for that. So that should hopefully get it in the forefront of people's minds for the end of the month.
That sounds amazing. Well, we'll definitely everybody have to go and watch and see what you're going to be preparing in the lead up to St Andrew's Day. And what about you, Robbie? Well, how are you going to be marking the occasion?
I think the lamb burgers and the lamb chops are definitely a favourite in my house. So I think it'll be a mixture of them. We will need to put some veg on the side just to keep it to keep the 5 a day in it as well. But definitely between the lamb burgers and the lamb chops, I think that's what we'll be having.
Well, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, Robbie and Anna, for joining us and for everything you do to champion Scotch Lamb. And to everyone who's listening, we hope you'll celebrate St Andrew's Day this year with a delicious Scotch lamb dish and support the wonderful farmers who produce it. Thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you for tuning in to the Quality Meats Scotland podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen for more monthly episodes as we continue to explore the vital topics affecting the red meat industry. If you want to stay updated with the latest news in our sector, be sure to sign up for the weekly QMS newsletter by emailing info@qmsscotland.co.uk. Join us next time for more insights from experts, farmers and industry leaders. But until then, stay connected with us on our social channels and keep up with the latest news from Quality Meats Scotland.